Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today, what I wanted to talk about is a few tips and tricks on acquiring your first 5 link and your first 6 link in the upcoming Endless Delve event. So the first thing that needs to be said is that Endless Delve is going to be an item economy that will be entirely unfamiliar to newer players. These days, for most players, getting a 6 link is a week 2 goal for a casual endgamer and a day 1 objective for a power gamer. Most people try to get a 6 link by about the time they hit level 87 or so. Now, it used to be the case, going back a few years ago in the game, that getting a 5 link was something that you might aim to get at about that time. And then a 6 link was a massive endgame chase item, something that the casual endgamer did not get unless they got very lucky, and something that the power gamer did not get on day 1. They'd be more likely to get it sort of middle of week 2. Now, Endless Delve is going to be a bit more like that old era again. 6 links will be scarce, and you're going to want to try and find alternatives to 6 links, such as items that have got powerful shaper mods that function as though they are a source of an additional support gem. So I want to look at both your options for getting a real 5 link, real 6 link, but also some of these sort of pseudo-link items that are alternatives that you should consider as well. A quick note on essences. Essences of Insanity and Horror provide mods that are about equivalent to an extra link. So these are things like socketed skills have 16% more attack and cast speed, or socketed gems deal 30% more elemental damage. These are really good, but unfortunately you're going to see so few Glyphic Fossils and so few corrupt essences that you may as well just consider these non-existent. Now, the next thing I need to say is talking about jewel orbs and naturally rolling a 6 socket item and a 6 link item. So in a previous video, I mentioned that there'd be no access to the vendor 4 jewelers to 1 fusing recipe. Now, GGG have come out since and contradicted me, so there will be the ability to trade currencies with a vendor in the Delve mines, and so you will be able to turn 4 jewelers into 1 fusing. Also, a recipe you probably never used before. You can trade 3 jewelers in for 1 chromatic, and that's something to keep in mind. There's a number of other currency recipes that are terrible value in a trade league, but that are things you might want to keep in mind for the solo self-found environment where you are constrained only to the Delve mines. So, quick thing to say about fusing and chest crafting odds. Firstly, you should always quality an item up to the maximum, which is 20% before linking it. If you have access to perfect fossils, you may actually want to go beyond 20%, and that's going to come down to the amount of perfect fossils you've got. But of course, remember that you can only perfect fossil an item if you don't care about the mods that it already has on it. So, you should always 6 socket an item before attempting to 5 link it. So don't try and 5 link an item that is 5 sockets. You should try to roll it for 6. Even though this is going to require a lot of jeweler's orbs, it's just generally far, far, far better value. You're approximately 40% more likely to hit a 5 link or better on a 6 socket item than you are on a 5 socket item. And that's because a 5 socket item can only roll a 5 link in one way, with sockets 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all linked, whereas a 6 socket item can effectively roll it in 3 ways. You can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 linked with 6 disconnected. You can get 1 disconnected with 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 connected. Or you can get really lucky and get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 connected. Now, whilst this might seem like it's triple a chance, after a bunch of testing as to how rare these outcomes are, it's my belief that it's 40% more likely, because for every 10 forward 5 links you get, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 connected with 6 disconnected, you'll get 3 backwards 5 links and 1 6 link. Now, when you're attempting to fuse an item, always never roll over a 5 link if you have under 200 fusings left. Of course, you can ignore this rule if you've got access to something like a tabula rasa that is a backup item, but tabula rasas will be a fairly lucky drop. And also, don't roll over a 4 link if you've got under 20 fusings left. And this is to prevent getting into an awful situation where you have to drop back 10, where you have to drop back 10 monster levels because the area that you're in, you just can't kill monsters with a 2 link when you're trying to fight monsters that are monster level 82. Additionally, before you commit to linking an item, seriously consider how hard it will be to Chrome. There is a tool online, and if you search Google, if you search in Google for the Varici calculator, it'll be the first thing that comes up. Remember that you have no access to the crafting bench at all. A couple of quick words about other sources of potential 6 links. You will occasionally encounter encrusted fossils. Encrusted fossils are awesome when you get them, and of course they're going to scramble a mods that are on an item, but there's something that I believe, and I don't have any data to back this up, but I believe that they give better results when used on an item that is already well linked. Just remember, of course, because it's a fossil, it's going to scramble the mods that are on the item. Lastly, natural 6-link drops, whether tabula rasa or a craftable 6-link, or a skin of the loyal located in one of the hidden heirlooms nodes behind a fractured wall. These are so rare as to be negligible considerations. If you get one, fantastic, but don't expect to get one. Tabulas actually do start dropping a bit more once you're actually at endgame, but by the time you're at endgame, you've probably got a powerful 5-link with stats that you'd prefer to use over a tabula anyway. So let's have a quick think as to alternatives to a natural 5-link. And I want to start by talking about helmets. So when we have a look at the helmets, there's a number of possibilities that come to mind here. And I want to start by talking about the options that are available on Shaper helmets. Shaper helmets have some excellent socketed gems are supported by level X level X support gem. However, this one here is not one of them. Socketed gems are supported by level 20 increased AoE. Increased AoE is such a bad support gem that this is really not worth considering as an extra link. Maybe you'd consider this a 4 1/4 link item if you had one of these mods on it, but really these are just bad. Honestly, I'd rather have something like adds 28 to 48 cold damage to spells. However, that one sort of stands alone. The other pseudo-links that are available on Shaper items are much better. Now, where are you going to get Shaper and Elder items? You might be thinking in the Delve mines. The answer is you're going to get these primarily from armor nodes. Armor nodes will sometimes have a chest called Astral Armaments or Astral Armor, and these will contain an Elder or a Shaper item. The item level will be set to be equal to the monster level in the area. So the maximum you can get this way is 83. And that's still the case even if you're in one of the quite rare delve zones that has the mod monsters drop items that are 3 levels higher, because it's not a monster drop, it's an item drop. The only way to get item levels 84 and above is by getting very lucky and getting a Legion encounter that drops a Celestial Armorsmith's Incubator, and then when you incubate, you get a useful item out of it. That's going to be so rare as to be practically non-existent. But with that in mind, the pseudo links that you care about on Shaper items are item level 80 and down, so they're okay. And the ones that you're looking for, if you are playing either a trapper or a miner, but particularly a trapper, particularly a miner in this case, it's the traps are on the gloves. There are some excellent pseudo-link mods that are available here. Unfortunately, with a weighting of 250, these mods are pretty rare. Now, if you're looking to get these, hitting one of these mine supports, and I will warn you that you can only get one mod from this pool. So if you get Socketed Gems as supported by level 18 Blast Chain Mine, that prevents you from getting Socketed Gems as supported by level 16 Trap and Mine Damage, because they're in the same mod group. They're all in Mine supported. If you do end up hitting one of these though, and also hit one of these ailment ones, you could have a potentially really good item. A couple of things that need to be said though. Firstly, you can't get Hypothermia and Innovate together, so no build your own Tempest Binding here. And you also don't get any benefit from Innovate if you are using Mines. The reason for this is that Innovate can only support skills that you cast yourself. So that said, the best possible combination for a Shaper helmet is probably hitting one of the Mine Gems. It doesn't really matter which one. Let's say that you hit Socketed Gems as supported by Blast Chain Mine. Then you would put Trap and Mine Damage in a normal socket in that item. If you hit Trap and Mine Damage there, you just put Blast Chain Mine in instead. So effectively, these are interchangeable. If you hit one of these in conjunction with Hypothermia, you have something really, really good. Now, your probability of hitting this is about 1 in 125 when you're rolling it with Chaos Orbs or Frigid Fossils. I think it's Frigid Fossils Frigid Fossils were the best way. So if you're rolling with Frigid Fossils, it's about 1 in 125 to hit that. So there's a reasonable chance. If you're someone that's determined to play a lot in this event, then you should try to roll that. And of course, that's to get a 6 link on your helmet. You can get a 5 link much easier by just getting one of these 2 mods. And then you can wind up with something that's really useful. So if you're playing a mine build, seek out a seek out a shaper helmet. If you're playing a build that is either cold damage based or lightning damage based and crits a lot, then you will gain a lot from Innovate, or even without crits necessarily on Hypothermia. And then you could possibly do with a pseudo 5 link helmet that has one of these mods in conjunction with a normal 4 link. Additionally, their socketed spells have percentage chance critical strike. This is usually considered a pseudo-link in trade leagues, but that's really only for the top tier. And as I mentioned before, item level 84 ones, they're kind of not really going to happen. Now we're going to have a look at the Elder helmet pool. And here I want to say that minions have a lot going for them here. So firstly, let's talk about the one non-minion use case, and this is really powerful, but also really unlikely. So fair warning, if you're playing one of the skill combinations that would benefit from this, don't expect to get both of these together. But if you can get Socketed Gems as supported by level 20 less duration, and Socketed Gems as supported by concentrated effect, that is an incredible helmet for 2 particular skills. One of those skills is Stormcall, the other one is Earthquake. That said, I don't think that these are going to be particularly good skills in this event because you don't have any access to the Labyrinth enchants, or no realistic access to them. So for that reason, I thought I'd mention them for completeness, but I don't think that many people will build around those pseudo-links. However, it's minion helmets that Elder helmets shine on, and you can get yourself a pseudo 6 link quite reasonably here, especially if you're playing something like Summon Raging Spirits. So there are a few possibilities that function as a pseudo link here. Firstly, there's the weakest one. Socketed Gems is supported by level X minion life. This is only half of a link really. Minion life is not a very good support gem here. However, you've got Socketed Gems is supported by level X minion damage, and you've got the various fire damage effects. Socketed Gems is supported by Immolate or burning damage, which can be really good if you build around them. And that's why I mention the potential of Summon Raging Spirits, or also a fire-based Spectre could really use a lot of these together. But in addition to these, you also have in the normal mod pool, plus to the level of Socketed Minion Gems. Again, you're going to have a very hard time finding a level 86 Elder helmet, but you can easily get a 65 plus one. And so for that reason, you can definitely rely upon rolling level plus 2 to the level of Minion Gems. Now I did the numbers on this so you don't have to. If you're playing a build that can use fire and minion setup, so if you're playing something like Summon Raging Spirits, and you want to roll to get any combination of the following: Immolate, minion damage, plus 2 to Socketed Minion Gems, and minion life. You'll hit 3 of these 1 time in 6, and all 4 of them 1 in 364 times if you roll your helmet using Bound Fossils and Scorched Fossils. Now this is really great and is something that I think is a really solid choice if you're looking for a helmet to go for. So that's the best slot of all. That's the helmet. Let's go from the best slot to the worst slot for pseudo-links, and that is the boots. So when we're talking about boots, there's a lot less here. If you're playing a Ballista Totem build or a Spell Totem build, then you should consider a pseudo 5 link here. So the Elder mod pool has Socketed Gems as supported by level X Spell Totem. That's a really good choice if you are playing a Spell Totem build, and that'll get you a pseudo 5 link. Then there's also Ballista Totem, which is for the much narrower niche of people who are playing a Ballista Totem build. Additionally, +1 to the level of all Ray Spectre Gems is such a powerful mod that you should just be aware that it's there in case you're considering playing a Spectre build like we were talking about before. Socketed Gems is supported by level 20 Fortify is kind of okay as well, but I think you need to say that there is a high opportunity cost to using your boot slot to chase a pseudo 5 link or a pseudo 6 link, and the reason for that is that the boot slot has the most important defensive stat in the game, which is move speed. It's also a good source of life, and it's a good source of resist. My suggestion to you is, unless you're in the narrow niche of playing a ballista totem or a spell totem build, you should be looking to ignore the boot slot for 5 and 6 links, and instead focus on the helmet, the chest, and the gloves. We'll get to the gloves now. So the gloves are the last spot that you can get a pseudo-link in, and these, need to be said, have incredible corruptions on them. And that means that if you get a pseudo 5 link, and let's say you've got a really powerful character in the Endless Delve event, you get a pseudo 5 link in it, and you're thinking, oh wow, this would have been amazing 20 levels ago, but now I just don't need it. This is what your Varlorbs are for late game. Gloves have always had incredible corruptions, and they just got better when the corruptions were overhauled about 2 years ago in the Incursion expansion. So let's have a quick look at the Shaper mod pool here, and there are 3 niches I want to identify here. Firstly, there's ball lightning builds that self-cast. So this would be a build that wants to get its hands on slow projectile support, and also wants to get its hands on, and also wants to get its hands upon the faster casting support. This would be a potential pseudo 6 link for a self-cast ball lightning build, which is a pretty off-meta build, but it's not the hardest thing in the world to roll. If you're trying to roll this, then you want to use etheric fossils or shuddering fossils, but use them on their own. Don't use them as a two of them together in a potent resonator. Use them in the primitive resonators. I've run the numbers on this, and you're 1 in 18 to hit it with an etheric, 1 in 17 with a shuddering, 1 in 9 if you use both, but that actually burns both fossils, and it is just slightly better to use them separately. Second case, and I think this is much more meta, at least in theory, is to get slower projectiles in addition to trap and mine damage support. Now, this sounds great. Unfortunately, most of the trap mods are for trap skills only, and traps are just not in a very good spot in the game at the moment, I don't think. Certainly not trap support. So for that reason, I'm not going to endorse trying to make a build that uses any of the top 9 mods here. However, the bottom 3 are pretty good. Trap and mine damage support is great. So if you could get that in conjunction with slower projectiles, that would be amazing for ball lightning, right? Well, yes, it would, but it's a trap. It's too hard to craft this. You're looking at 1 in 489 Chaos Orbs to hit it, or 1 in 2,514 alterations. I've done these numbers on the website craftofexile.com, and there are no good fossil options either, because you're looking for things that just don't have any tags that are particularly targetable. So for that reason, I don't think you're going to get this during the entire league. Now, by all means, use one of these mods. So use a set of 4 link Shaper gloves that have got one of these mods as a 5 link, as a 5th link. And if you happen to fluke the 6th one, then fantastic. But if you're planning on making a ball lightning mine build, then what I would suggest is instead trying to get a pseudo 5 link set of gloves and then varling a great implicit onto them. Now there's an ultra narrow niche here, and that ultra narrow niche is lightning trap builds. If you're interested in playing lightning trap builds, you can benefit from slower projectiles, and you can benefit from advanced traps or trap and mine damage here. So for that reason, this build does get a little bit more, and it is 3 times easier to roll a set of Shaper gloves for slower for slower projectiles and 1 of the lightning trap friendly trap supports, but that's still pretty unlikely. You're still looking 1 in 163 chaos, 1 in about 870 alterations. And when I say 1 in 870 alterations, I don't mean that you are guaranteed to get it after 870, just that that's the average number it's going to take. It's certainly going to be the case that a couple of % of people won't get it. If they're targeting this, they won't get it in 4 times 870 attempts. So that's all I got on the Shaper gloves. They're the uses that I see for them. I guess you can always use any spellcaster can use a 4 link with socketed gems supported by faster casting as well, especially if the other mods are good. So that's something to consider, but mostly those are the niches that I see for Shaper gloves. Next up we come to Elder gloves, and here there's actually a lot of different options. So many that it's really difficult to go through them all and to create specific niche cases for all of them. So having a quick look, we've got Socket Gems supported by faster projectiles. Faster projectiles is a meh support, but there's a few things it does really well on. It's really good on Spark, it's really good on Ethereal Knives, and it's really good on one or two other skills as well. Basically, any skill, Tornado Shot also comes to mind. Any of these skills are examples of skills where faster projectiles doesn't just mean that you hit the enemy faster, but it means that you actually hit over a much larger range. Essentially, what faster projectiles is to Ethereal Knives is a massively buffed increased AoE support. And so for that reason, this is something to consider just as a pseudo 5-link. In terms of the other options though, you've got faster attacks, which is just a solid but not spectacular support for pretty much any attack skill. You have poison support, which is very niche, but you know if you need it, if it's going to help you build, you know about it. And also chance to bleed. Chance to bleed is interesting because it adds a lot of flat physical damage to skills, to socketed skills as well. And so for that reason, it's something that's really potentially quite good. Then there's also socketed attacks have plus percentage chance to critical multipliers as well. Now what I would suggest, if you are looking to make a build that is playing a bleed skill, you may wish to consider trying to roll socketed skills are supported by chance to bleed, in conjunction with socketed attacks have plus to crit multi. And the way that you would do this is you would combine a jagged fossil to amp up your chances of hitting the physical mods, with a corroded fossil, which amps up your chances to roll bleed and bleed mods and poison mods, and you would also use a serrated fossil, which amps up your chance to roll all of the attack mods. And that will give you a pretty good chance of hitting a good combination here. That's talking about bleed. If you wanted to go poison instead, you drop the jagged fossil because you don't want to amp up physical damage, and you would put in an aberrant fossil because all poison mods are also chaos tagged. So there's a bunch of options that you've got there. The other thing that's really cool is you also have a chance of picking up the physical or chaos damage over time multiplier mod as well. So there's a lot for you in the Elder suffixes if you are playing an attack-based damage over time build. But there's a lot of other options there, and I think that's one that I will let you explore yourself, because there's going to be a lot of additional choices. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. That is all of the things that I can think of as really obvious niche ways to get yourself a 5 or 6 link, except for one thing I do want to say, and that is the use of Varlorbs in general. So Varlorbing an armorer's strongbox or Varlorbing a piece of armor that you loot off the ground, every time that you Varl a piece of armor, you have a 1 in 144 chance of it rolling into a 6 link, and a 1 in 45 chance, at least according to my understanding of how Varlorbs work, of rolling it into a 5 link. Altogether, that's actually pretty good. And so that means that that's a good use of your Varlorbs. If you roll an item this way, it will have totally random colors, and it will have totally random mods, but it will have all 6 mod slots filled. So mostly it'll be garbage, but it'll be at the better end of garbage. These corrupt 6 links can be quite solid, and one thing you might want to consider is that they start becoming available at item level 50. That's the earliest that 6 links can be rolled. You may want to start varling chest pieces that you loot around level 50, and then if you get one that's got really serviceable colors, maybe that's something to consider re-rolling to use. So maybe you'll start your Endless Delve event on a cold damage over time occultist, then you'll pick up some sort of item level 67 glorious plate, smash it with a Varlorb, and you get really lucky and it goes 6 link, and it goes green, 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 blue, red, and then you think, what's green, 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 blue, red? That seems like some sort of projectile skill. So I'm going to put this in the bank, and then I'm going to roll up some sort of Pathfinder character or some sort of Deadeye, and then be able to use that really well. Anyway, that's all I got on this. If you've got any comments or questions, fire away below. Otherwise, I will see you in the mines for Endless Delve.